Well, welcome everyone. Let's talk about media and communication. And this episode looks at how tech advancements and the COVID-19 pandemic have made digital skills more important, but how a digital divide still exists. And I have invited Maria Laura Ruiu, who with colleagues conducted a survey of more than 2,000 English internet users with school-aged kids, checking out how different factors affect their digital skills. And turns out, as Maria will explain, income is the only major socio-demographic factor that really makes a difference. But things like motivation, access, usage, social support are also really important here. Maria, welcome to our episode.
Thank you very much for having me here. Nice to meet you.
Yes. So, Maria, tech changes happen over time, but gaps endure and continue to exist. And you mentioned in the article that previous research has primarily focused on structural determinants of digital experience, socioeconomic factors, for example, while individual agency and motivation were not considered as they should. So was this the starting pistol of this research?
Digital divide has been the focus of many studies, especially in relation to the first level of the digital divide in terms of studying access to digital technologies. However, our focus, as many previous studies did, is on the second level of digital divide that is strictly connected with the skills that are needed to navigate the digital realm in a proficient way. And so this was the focus, the main aspect that we investigated in our research, but not just looking at the traditional indicators of digital inequalities, such as those that you mentioned before in relation to sociodemographic traits, but also structural components such as the physical access to the digital realm. But we also explore the factors that are more connected to the individual agency, the individual space of maneuver that could be in a way supported by individual motivation to access the digital sphere and the digital realm, but also acquiring digital skills that could be useful for them to have a proficient digital experience, but also looking at factors such as confidence, but also other factors more related, for example, to the frequency of use of digital tools for conducting different arrays of activities in the digital sphere. And also looking at factors such as support that we can, on the one hand, receive as in need of some kind of digital support from others, but also the support that we are able to provide to others. And so we looked into all the combination of these factors and how they can contribute towards increasing my chances of survival, let's say, in this digital world.
So after looking at all these elements and going after this question, so what were the main findings, the main highlights of your study?
Well, you anticipated some of the results at the beginning of our conversation, emphasizing how some structural components of the digital experience still persist as determinants of digital inequalities. So we looked, for example, into the economic factors, but also access to digital devices and internet connections, for example. These are factors that still have an important role to play in determining not just my access to the digital sphere, but also in, let's say, preparing, posing the favorable conditions for me to acquire those skills that are needed to navigate in the digital realm. And so this might be explained because incomes, for example, are still a resource not just for buying, for assessing physically the devices, but also to assess, for example, resources and educational resources for me and the skills to navigate the digital realm. But then we also, as I said, explored the access component that was another relevant factor in determining, especially in relation to possessing a broadband type of connection that could ensure a stable, reliable type of connection. Then there was another aspect that was slightly surprising that was related to the residential area of our users. Because usually, if you look at the scientific debate, you will find that rural areas are always classified as more disadvantaged compared to urban areas. But actually, we found that our respondents who live in rural areas perceive their skills as higher. But actually, these results could be a little bit misleading because we investigate in the second level of the digital divide, so involving those users who are already connected to the digital realm. And actually, the big difference between the rural and urban areas could still persist in terms of having the proper infrastructures, let's say, and accessing the digital sphere. So the big difference could still be dependent on the first level of the digital divide in this direction. And then there are aspects that emerged from our study that are directly connected to motivation, as we said before, in terms of being motivated to explore the digital sphere, to explore new activities, new activities online and new devices. And so using the digital resources to make our life easier. But also the confidence showed by respondents in terms of feeling prepared and feeling confident in navigating the digital realm. Another aspect was also related to engaging in a number of different online activities and the frequency of engaging with different activities, from professional activities to consumption activities to entertainment, leisure type of activities, but also assessing institutional type of services. And so another final aspect that emerged was that related to the support of a network. And so our study focused mainly on users, as you introduced at the beginning of our conversation, users who are parents in a specific age with school-age children. And so these users, during the COVID pandemic, we collected data in 2022. So it was when, let's say, restrictions were starting to be eased. And so we asked questions to this group of people because we wanted to understand if they were at risk of becoming digitally poor because of the digital acceleration due to the COVID pandemic. However, we found that those parents who needed support during the COVID pandemic to engage with this different array of activities were also those with lower skills, digital skills. Instead, those who possessed higher degrees of digital skills were also those able to provide support to others. And so in summary, let's say, to summarize these different kinds of aspects that we considered, we found that what is important is that we consider digital inclusion as a very complex issue that is multi-level, multi-phased, and needs to be understood in this complexity as well as tackled in this complexity.
Yeah, I was going to comment the same. So there's a lot of findings in different levels and of different areas. And follow up on these, you suggest that tackling digital inequalities should then be a priority for policymakers with training programs, policies to foster digital inclusion, for example. So what are the lessons of these findings, for example, for public policy or individuals, as complex as they are, though?
Well, I would say that these findings could be valuable for both, but also not just for policymakers or individuals, but also for organizations that are interested in promoting digital literacy in digital skills through especially educational programs. So we see that policy making has been focused for a long time on tackling mainly the access to the digital sphere by providing tools, by providing infrastructure. These are pivotal elements that need to be supported and in a policy making point of view. But simultaneously, there is a need, and we have started to move in this direction, but there is still a need to promote and support programs that are connected to develop digital skills that are not just connected to the technical aspects to be acquired, but are also connected to aspects such as boosting confidence, motivating users to become curious about the digital realm. And so these should be considered themselves as skills to be acquired and learned through educational intervention. And so while it's still important to promote intervention at a structural level, it's still important to consider the complexity of the issue, also considering factors more related to the individual sphere. And then we mentioned before, for example, some aspects related to supportive network. And so we also said that some users who live in rural areas might be motivated to engage in digital activities. It might be, this is a speculative explanation, but it might be because they are more isolated and might need more digital technologies to feel connected to the world. And so even, for example, in this context, trying to understand how the promotion of community-based initiative based, for example, on informal support, in which those who possess a higher digital skill can support those in need to be supported, helped in this direction, could be an interesting kind of experiment or kind of a program to be implemented.
And as many findings that your study has, you and your colleagues also indicate many venues for future research. So I won't go after all of them, but tell us more about those.
Well, I could say that we didn't mention the fact that our study was conducted as a survey. And so as a survey, we collected quantitative type of data. And actually, we didn't ask any questions about that could provide qualitative type of data in relation, for example, to what exactly motivates users to increase and to improve their digital skills. And so this is a factor that needs to be further explored, especially in relation to your previous questions about what kind of effects these studies could have on policy making, because it's important also to identify those specific triggers that can boost motivation, confidence in users. It's also activating this kind of reciprocal support that can surely help in this direction. And so, yes, I think that there is more to be found, let's say, in this direction in this field. And also, I think that one aspect that deserves to be further investigated relates to this rural-urban difference that could be interesting to understand exactly the reasons why those rural residents who can assess, so they have the availability of tools and infrastructures, why they show higher levels of digital skills compared to our respondents in urban areas. So this kind of aspects, I think, could be very interesting to be explored also for implementing and proposing policy making changes.
Yeah, well, still many venues for future research. And
yes.
Now, personally, Maria, after looking at these findings, after reflecting on them, so what are the most important personal reflections you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think that Massimo, Daniel, and I, we actually discussed many times about what kind of issues should be investigated and connected to digital inequalities, because we know that digital inequalities are strictly connected to existing socioeconomic inequalities, meaning that it's a kind of vicious cycle in which pre-existing disadvantages create those conditions for digital inequalities to emerge, because I don't have the possibility of changing, let's say, my opportunities, let's say. At the same time, those who have less opportunities on the digital realm will have no benefit also in the offline arena. And so let's say that if there is this negative cycle of activated that can generate interconnected types of inequalities. And so we tried to understand with our research and the future research that we will conduct on this topic, what triggers can be identified of these vicious cycles, and what triggers can, by contrast, activate a kind of virtuous cycle. So, for example, one aspect that relates to confidence, because we explored how confidence can predict digital skills. But actually also in this direction, confidence can be a kind of trigger for improving and increasing my digital skills. But at the same time, if I already have digital skills, I might feel more confident in let's say, improving myself, my digital experience, and also transferring these digital benefits to the offline arena. And so I think that more reflection is needed in terms of understanding this double loop of activation of benefits and activation of disadvantages. And so I think that research should focus a little bit more on these interconnections between digital and offline, because the boundaries between the two are blurring.
Well, and as challenging as it may be, especially after this reflection question, I always ask this to our speakers. If you had to sum up our conversation in no more than 2 sentences, what would it be?
Well, digital divide, I think, goes beyond mere access. So this means that we must consider digital inclusion initiatives as complex as digital inclusion is. And so we need to concentrate our attention on identifying those factors that can help us boost and promote digital inclusion by considering both structural components of the problem, but also individual attributes and factors that combined together can affect our digital experience.
A good closing of the episode. Maria, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo.
So for all of those who are watching us on YouTube, if you scroll down, you can find all the resources, all the materials that Maria and I have just been talking, and also some follow-up links you can click and to know more about our projects and the work that Maria and I just discussed.